Bonjour à tous, c'est Sklang. Je voulais vous dire quelques mots avant que la vidéo ne commence. Tout d'abord, c'est une première sur la chaîne d'avoir une vidéo réalisée en anglais. Celle-ci sera sous-titrée en français et en anglais. C'est une vidéo interview du modeur du Sukhoi 22 M4, Majo. Vous pouvez le connaître aussi sur les forums sous le nom de SVKSniper. On va parler avec lui de la création de modes et de modules, notamment rouge sur DCS, mais d'autres aussi petites questions annexes. Cette vidéo n'aurait pas été possible à réaliser sans la participation active de Chess, donc un grand merci à lui d'avoir apporté toutes ses compétences en anglais pour pouvoir mener à bien cette interview. Et évidemment un grand merci à Majo pour son amabilité et bien sûr sa disponibilité pour pouvoir enregistrer cette vidéo. Un grand merci à eux deux. J'espère que cette vidéo et on va dire ce genre d'interview avec des modeurs ou des développeurs va vous plaire. Si vous en souhaitez d'autres sur le même format, n'hésitez pas à le mentionner en commentaire, notamment de ce que vous avez pensé aussi de celle-ci. En attendant, je vous souhaite un bon visionnage. À la prochaine.
Good afternoon, Marian.
Good afternoon, guys.
Thank you very much for joining us today and to talk about yourself and your Sukhoi Su-22 project. So without any further ado, let's dive right into it, and we will start with you. So could you introduce yourself along maybe with your background in the world of simulation and how you got to develop modules?
My name is Marian, or Mayo, and most of you know me from the Eagle Dynamics forum as SVKSniper. The first thing I want to say is that I'm glad to have met you and your interest in doing this interview. My beginnings in DCS go back to the days of Logo and Flaming Lips, when I met guys and friends from SVK Squadron. Later, when we flew joint missions, I got to know others, and among them were members of the Virtual by Albatross's aerobatic team, where I later became a member and flew in the slot position. From the very beginning, I was fascinated and interested in how some models created and added various modes of flyable planes to this simulator. For example, from France, it was variable Tigru. Example, from Germany, Tomcat, or the beautiful Vena mode with Tomcat and Super Hornet. I was lucky enough to have a friend who teaches 3D graphics at the university, and with the help of him and another member of the Via Albatrosses team, they told me how to model and create UV maps for 3D modeling 3ds Max. And gradually I improved and created different models, and later also modes for Logon and later also DCS Vault. And I still enjoy 3D modeling and grateful for that. And as you know, my last project that I currently working on is the Sukhoi 22, and as the lead 3D artist in Aviastorm for the Tornado project.
All right, thank you for this great introduction. So now we're gonna talk more in details about mode and modules themselves within DCS. And so could you explain for us what are the main differences between a mod and a full fidelity module?
To say simple, the main difference is when creating a full fidelity module, you usually have full support from ED with access to all necessary SDK and information that are important to access to DCS on the lowest level. On the other hand, when you are creating mode, you usually base it on existing module, the most often Flaming Lips, free planes for easy access to basic systems. With mods, you have only limited options in simulating all the necessary systems as opposite to full fidelity modules, where either provides you with the necessary information regarding how DCS works. Of course, there are modes that are almost on par with actual full fidelity modules like the A4A Skyhawk or UHA-60 Blackhawk, the name of few, and others that were made possible with hard work and dedication of the community, and that would deserve to be turned into full fidelity modules with ED support, like it is happening, for example, with C130 mod, that lead to current level of DCS fans are aware of, I believe.
Okay, and then so what are the steps to create a mod or a module in DCS?
As with anything else of such complexity, the work usually starts with research and collection of all the necessary documents, factual and visual, and if it's possible, getting in touch with subject matter experts, being technicians or pilots who work or operate the aircraft you are interested in simulating. With the documentation at the end, you start the modeling process, creating extra 3D model, altogether with textures, model loads, level of details, damage models, etc. With the extra model done, you move to create the interior model of the cockpit, of course, because you want to allow people to fly from inside. Then, with the models created, the focus turns to programming part, as you want the system of the aircraft to work as much as possible. And as I said previously, the difference between the mod and an actual full fidelity module will be how much of the details and systems you will be able to incorporate in your work.
Okay, thank you for your insight then. And so when you work on a project like the SU-22 you are currently working on, what would you say is the most difficult step in the process of creating a module for DCS?
Excuse me. With regards to the Sukhoi 22 project, I would say the hardest step was getting the documentation. It is in Russian after all. And getting in touch with subject matter experts, luckily with me being born and living in Slovakia, and with the great access to local military history museum, I was able to get my hands on this kind of information and contact as well as to the real aircraft. So having all the data and measurements, even being able to record several sounds of the aircraft, luckily turned out fine. The second most difficult step for me personally is the programming part. From enabling basic system of the aircraft over to creating, I believe, flight model up to simulating difficult systems such as radars and so on. Without the access to the SDK and with my limited coding skills, as I said, I'm mainly a 3D modeler, it's quite a challenge.
Okay, that's very interesting to hear. And so, once your project is mature enough to be considered as a potential future model, how do you get in touch with ED as a third party, and how much help does ED provide for the development?
For anyone to become involved with ED as a third party developer, who's actually able to create and sell modules for DCS, you need to demonstrate to AD that you are able to create the module from A to Z, that you can deliver the model up to the current standards, not only with regards to the 3D visual part, but also in terms of proper programming of all system and fly models. Yes, and after the approval, Eagle Dynamics can sample your work with the SDK and all the documentation to make your module work with the DCS as it should.
Okay, so thank you very much for this insight into how to develop module and mods for DCS. It's all very interesting. So in this next part, we will be speaking more in details about your project itself and where it stands today.
Mhm.
So, but first, why did you choose to do Sukhoi Su-22?
In my case, it's simple. As I said before, I was born in life in Slovakia, which before the division in 1993 was Czechoslovakia. With this in mind, it was not a big deal to see Russian planes either in our museum or flying around actually. And why Su-22, or if you want the fitter? It's beautiful plane with a very wide range of armaments, and it flies at supersonic speed. What else do you need?
Yeah, that's true. All right, it is a very beautiful plane, and I agree with you on that part. And it should be a very interesting module to see, hopefully. And so, what are your plans for this project? Do you want to keep it as a mod? Do you want to make it a full fidelity module some days?
Well, of course, I would love to turn the mod into a full fidelity module one day, but I have no idea if and when this can happen yet. For the time being, I'm continuing to go to the work on the aircraft in a slow pace while reworking some system textures and so on.
Okay, all right. And so, more about the Sukhoi Su-22 itself. What features of the aircraft do you want to integrate in your mod?
If the aircraft turns out to be a full fidelity module one day, then I would like to simulate all the systems that were available for the aircraft during its operation phase in all the military air forces, including system for SEAD or recon missions, like the tracker pod and similar.
All right. And so once this aircraft hopefully makes its way to us DCS pilots, what benefits for the Red Aviation will this mod or hopefully module bring to the simulator?
The fitter is a supersonic fighter bomber aircraft, and as such, it can provide versatile options for strike and SEAD missions to the red side. Missions that are nowadays possible with some exception only with vulnerable to Sukhoi 25 or in limited capacity with all the red Fleming List aircraft. It will definitely expand options the fans of the red side aircraft can utilize.
Yeah, I agree with that last part. I would really like an aircraft that could do a seed on the red side more effectively than the Su-25T can do it.
Right.
And so obviously this interview wouldn't be complete if we didn't ask you the dreaded question, do you have a date for the release of the mod?
As I said previously, I have no exact date. I intend to release the mod. I will be working on it, but I have no exact schedule set.
Okay, that's completely understandable and expected. All right. Okay, so in this last part, we will speak more generally about the red aircrafts in DCS. And so our first question is, why do we keep hearing that it is more difficult to develop a red plane in DCS, than a blue plane?
This is a difficult question to answer. I think that is mainly due to poor access to the documentation and information about the aircraft in general.
Okay, yeah, I could see that being a valid reason. And so we also often hear that obtaining licensing for aircraft of Soviet or Russian origin could be tricky due to Russian laws. Do you think your Sukhoi 22 project could end up being hampered by those Russian military laws? And do you know if export versions of Soviet or Russian aircrafts are easier to bring to DCS than native ones?
Sure, as the Sukhoi 22 is no longer in active service and its systems either of export or of Russian version are no longer in use and or confidential either, I don't think these laws would apply on the develop of my module.
Okay. Hopefully you're right, and you won't get in trouble with the Russians for developing your project. And so you mentioned earlier that you are now working with Aviastorm on the Tornado. And so with the Sukhoi 22 and the Tornado, you are effectively working on two different projects, both from the Cold War period. So in your opinion, and with the limitation we know for the creation of full fidelity module, what era would you say is the best for blue-red opposition?
In general, I think that the best era for any module development is the one of which aircraft documentation are easily available and declassified, of course. And although the people who were working on this aircraft or flying them are still alive and well. This applies to blue and red aircraft with no difference.
Okay, all right. And so, lastly, more about DCS itself in general. What do you think DCS lacks most to make it more immersive?
For me, I think a finished sim engine first, and the map of whole world, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I have to agree with you on the first item for sure. And I would also be glad to see a map of the whole world, like you said. Mm-hmm. And so that was our last question. Thank you very much for all your answers. And before we bring this interview to an end, do you have anything you wish to add?
Thank you for having me for this interview. I hope that anyone who considers creating modes or modules for DCS got some view into the process of how this all works for DCS. And I would like to say that the more the merrier. A good DCS mode or module can widen the community and it helps to spread or allow for retro flying to general public.
Well said. So again, thank you very much for your time, for your answers to our question. We are really, really grateful for this interview. And we wish you all the best in your future endeavors, be it with the Sukhoi 22 project or with your work on the Tornado at Aviastorm. And all the best to you, and goodbye, Mayan.
Thank you, and goodbye, guys.